Welcome to In Sequence, a comics podcast for everyone. My name is Matt, and these are your panelists. Introduce yourself, panelists.
Hi, I am Jillian.
I'm Robin.
And I'm Scout.
And I believe this is going to be our first episode that actually makes it to a feed.
Maybe.
We would love to tell you what we're all about. This, as we've said, is In Sequence. It's a comics podcast, and I think when we say comics, we mean anything that has pictures and words in sequence.
Man, sometimes they don't even have to have words.
Sometimes they don't even have to have words.
You are right.
Wish I could remember the name of it, but I read a really good one that had no words.
Our definition of comics is very broad. We're going to be talking about an American superhero comic today, but to give you a peek into the process of making the show, we've already done 2 episodes on manga that you might hear in different places. This is a show born out of the Worst Garbage podcast network, and mostly just like us talking about like, why don't we have a comics podcast? Because so many of us love comics in some form or another. And it's going to be a pretty like flexible rotating panel of guests. If you're familiar with people that are on the Worst Garbage shows, you might hear some voices that you recognize here and there. But this is your core crew, myself, Jillian, Robin, and Scout, that are going to be around. Some of us might drop off here or there for individual episodes, but this is going to be the main crew. Did anyone here want to like talk about like why you're excited about In Sequence?
I'm just happy to be here. I love to make things with my friends. As somebody who personally, I am a visual artist. I draw for a living. I draw for fun. I read a lot of mainly manga, but I have trained as a story artist in the past. So I'm very much somebody who loves sequential storytelling in any form, and I love to think about it and be a geek about it, and I like it when my friends let me like yell at them about it. So that's why I'm very excited to share some of that enthusiasm with you and with our listeners.
Yeah. I mean, like Scout, I just like making things with my friends. It's just a fun thing to do. Maybe we'll get into this in like a trailer thing we're going to cut, but I definitely have the least experience here with comics. I'm not a visual artist in any kind of sense of the word. And I haven't really read comics in the last, like, let's say decade. And so this is kind of an excuse for me to start reading comics again, and also to do it in a format that lets me talk about them with people who really like comics. So it's like a very good introduction to the things I think I'll be reading, because I can like think and talk about them with people who like to think about them and talk about them.
Yeah,
much like the others, I also like making things with my friends. I feel like that's just a given at this point with the way all of our kind of shows tend to work. But I am a big literature geek. I took 1 comics class in college on like sequential storytelling via comics, and I was hooked, and I decided I am going to obsess over the ways that comics are literature, essentially. And I think getting to nerd out about literature in any shape or form is basically like my favorite thing. So
yeah, I didn't get back into comics. I like read a few as a teenager, but I didn't get back into it until a couple of years ago because of people from TWG in the Discord specifically. And now I'm like an avid member of our comics club and Comics General in there. And I don't know, at a certain point, it just became like, well, obviously I'm going to end up making a show with my friends about comic books. That's just going to happen. But since we all love comics in some way, what have y'all been reading lately?
I'm still on that Naruto grind. I got like 150 chapters left, y'all. I'm so close to finishing.
You're getting there. How many Naruto chapters are there?
There's like 700. So I'm at like 560s.
You're in the 7th inning stretch.
I really am.
The 700th inning stretch.
Yeah, the 700th inning stretch. There was one panel, I think I sent it to you, Scott. There's like a panel recently that just like was really, really cool with the way that they framed it.
You did send me this.
Yeah, it was like a flashback panel of these 2 characters who have a very taut and fraught history together. And just the way that it frames the 2 of them was really good. So like, you know, I've been enjoying enjoying it, but I do need to finish it so I can read other things.
That's like you have like a whole Frieren left. Like there are 140 chapters of Frieren.
Hey, I'm actually we're starting the anime today. I haven't watched it yet, but our anime group is watching it today, so I'm excited to start that.
I am so excited for
So
you. That
good.
pilot episode is so good.
Get
Yeah, I'm
ready to
stoked.
cry.
Yeah.
I'm so ready. I love crying, guys. I love to cry.
On a totally different note, if you don't mind, I want to talk about the thing I've been reading, which I already shared
Yes.
with y'all, which is this book called Black Blood, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
Nice.
I was so upset Barnes & Noble didn't have it when I went.
it's what I've been calling the robot yaoi.
Mm-hmm.
It is technically a cyborg yaoi, and it is everything that I wanted it to be.
Hell yeah.
That's exciting.
It was so like good. I don't mean good in like the like objective goodness way. I mean good in like I just had a fucking great time reading the robot yaoi.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, all the questions that you have when you like see this man on the cover like about to kiss the robot, all those questions get answered.
Hell yeah.
Or at least addressed. It's good. It sets up an interesting sci-fi world, I think, actually, which is, I think, unfortunate because I don't think that this is a book that's going to be revisited. It has a very clear, definitive ending. But, you know, I'll read a trashy Seven Seas yaoi any day. So that is exactly what this is.
I guess upholding my position as the non-comics reader here, I've not been reading any comics. I have, though. So I was recently actually asking some TWG people to recommend me different podcasts because all of the podcasts I listen to are bummers. And I was like, didn't want to have another bummer to add to the list. And Scout, you and I think some others recommended Shelved by Genre, which I'm shocked I've not been listening to already. It's a Range Touch podcast that like Austin Walker is one of the hosts who I like just a huge fan of his work. And I decided to start with the Earthsea season because I love Earthsea. And so I've been rereading Earthsea to go back along with it. So I just finished A Wizard of Earthsea again, which is great. I mean, it's like, as they discuss in the thing, it's like, it's written for people who are like 2 decades younger than me, but it is still a really excellent book. I only read it as an adult, actually. And so going back to it again as an adult, it still like has all of that power. But yeah, Earthsea, it's so good. I don't know what else to say about it. It's fantastic.
I need to read any Le Guin at all. That's a big blind spot for me.
Yeah.
Wife story, I'm telling you, quick and easy. And so good.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. And I haven't read Earthsea in a couple of years, but when I did read it, I had a great time with it. Big fan of Sparrowhawk.
Yeah. Yeah. Le Guin is just such a good writer. I mean, the way she tells the story is just so captivating.
I think about the Otak like every day of my life.
Love the attack.
Miss you, Otak.
Scott, what are you reading?
I have not had that much time for reading lately, but I ran across a manga called Ship of Theseus by Toshiya Higashimoto, and I read the first 25 chapters out of like 90 something, which unfortunately those are the only ones that are available for free, and so I was left on a bit of a cliffhanger, and I'm kind of debating like they don't have it at the library, so I'm like, what am I doing? Am I gonna buy into it? But it's a really interesting crime story that has a sort of a supernatural element. It's kind of like this big horrendous crime happened to the father of the main character, or the father of the main character was involved in it, and in adulthood the son is still sort of dealing with the repercussions of that and ends up doing kind of a Back to the Future. Well, gets sent back in time to before the crime happened, and there is sort of this tension of, can he change the past? Can he figure out what really was going on? You know, was his father innocent? Was his father involved? And the art style is really unusual and nice to me. I like it a lot, and the story is really compelling. It does have, you know, some darker content, some darker themes. So that's something that, you know, if you were interested in looking at it, you would want to look and see if, you know, make sure that you're comfortable with that stuff. But really interesting, and I want to read more of it. So I have to figure out how.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it does sound interesting. I don't know. Maybe we'll read it on here someday.
Maybe I think it would be I think it could be fun to cover.
So let's leap into the front matter.
Nightwing Volume 1 Leaping into the Light is a 2021 collection of 6 issues of DC Comics' Nightwing. It begins with issue number 78, which was the first issue by a new creative team led by Tom Taylor. This celebrated run of Nightwing comics would go on for a little over 3 years, ending in October 2024. The run is collected across 7 volumes, beginning with the book that we're reading today. Nightwing Leaping into the Light is written by Tom Taylor. It has pencils, inks, and covers by Bruno Redondo. Colors are by Adriano Lucas, lettering by Wes Abbott, additional inks by Andy Lanning and Scott Hanna, and additional penciling by Neil Edwards and Rick Leonardi. This is where I should say that when we do manga episodes, we're largely going to be referring to a single creator. The thing about American comics, especially American superhero comics in the work for hire industry, is that they're going to have a lot more people involved in the process of making these comics. So in one of our test episodes, we talked about a book by Renteku. That person did all of the work on that manga. In this case, we call this Nightwing by Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor's just the writer.
He's just a writer.
Just a writer. Us writers never get any respect.
He did one of my favorite Superman runs. I mean, specifically Superman John Kent, Clark's son, and he did like DC's Deceased. I love a lot of things that Tom Taylor writes. This is just like how American comics works. Even in like independent comic books, you're going to see a lot of large creative teams. I think sometimes in like image books, you might have an artist that does everything except the lettering usually. And once in a blue moon, you'll get a creator that does everything top to bottom.
Yeah.
Question for folks who know more about this stuff. Is the fact that we don't get those credits for manga because people really are doing all of this, or is it more of an uncredited labor kind of situation?
I don't know that much about this, but I'm sure, Jill, you can probably also confirm this, that a lot of times mangaka do have one or multiple assistants that they will thank in their afterwards, but aren't credited directly in the like credits of the thing. But some mangaka do work independently, but it's pretty common that they have assistants that sort of are the unsung heroes. A lot of them will do the backgrounds. A lot of them do like effects work too.
Yeah.
Can confirm, in reading Naruto, like every couple of chapters, there's like a little bio thing about like one of Kishimoto's assistants.
Oh, that's nice.
That's cute.
I know a lot of times also like you'll hear about mangaka who are becoming popular now, and it's like, oh, they were XYZ's assistant before this. But it is definitely the act of crediting is a lot different in American comics. So even when there are actually bigger teams behind manga, you don't see it like actively addressed as much as you see it in American comics.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from backlash to Marvel and DC in the past not crediting creators.
Yeah.
And so we have like a really strong culture these days of creators being credited in work for hire books, especially. And also, in the independent books, because it has been such a problem in the past, when you're doing an independent book, you're now shouting out or crediting people that, you might not. Me, when I got into comics seriously in the past couple of years, it was surprising to me that lettering was called out separately. So one of my favorite comic artists and writers, Peach Momoko, she is one of those few creators that does everything top to bottom except lettering. That is the only thing she doesn't do. And I believe it's primarily because her lettering on Marvel books is done in English.
Oh.
So
that's really interesting. I was just going to say it's because lettering's fucking hard.
Yeah.
It is a completely different skill set.
Yeah.
You actually just put this in the chat that I'm going to call it out, Jillian, which is we did a test recording on Look Back by Tatsuki Fujimoto, and you said that he shouts out his assistant's work constantly.
Yeah, specifically, like I remember it was a couple years ago, it was maybe a year or two ago, and he was like shouting out on Twitter specifically like, hey, my assistant wrote this really good yaoi, go read it, everyone. And we're just like, I love the fact that you're just like out here like, please go read this smut that my assistant wrote.
I love that so much.
That's amazing.
Fujimoto's so funny.
Before the events of Leaping into the Light, 2 important things happened. The first is that the supervillain KG Beast shot our hero Dick Grayson in the head. Up until the events of this book, the former Robin has been running around calling himself Rick Grayson. Honestly, I don't know much about that story, but I know people didn't like it. The second is that while Dick was running around as Rick, Alfred, Bruce Wayne's butler, died. The story begins with Dick returning to his chosen home of Bloodhaven, where Barbara Gordon, longtime member of the Bat family, both in her roles as Batgirl and as Oracle, is waiting for him. She's the executor of Alfred's estate, and Alfred left Dick a lot of money. Throughout the story, Dick attempts to save the city of Bloodhaven from those who would harm it, not only as Nightwing the superhero, but also as Dick Grayson the philanthropist. He builds a park for homeless children, meets a long-lost blood relative, and goes up against two of the city's biggest baddies, Blockbuster and Heartless.
When you say this book is like multi-award winning, do you mean this volume or the entire seven
volume run?
Okay.
It's also important. American comics are weird. It's not like you can just pick up from one. This run has been going on since 2016, and there were previous runs of Nightwing before that, but specifically Tom Taylor's started at issue number 78. Issue number 78 of Nightwing 2016. And that means that he did not start writing in 2016. I'm looking up when this first issue came out. May of 2021 is when the first issue in this book came out. So you'll have multiple creative teams take over a book over many years. And that it's just like the weirdness of how American comics work. In fact, Marvel's doing the opposite these days. They have both to Scarlet Witch and to the Fantastic Four had a new creative team come on, put a number one out for that new creative team, and then a year later been like, we need a new number one to boost sales. We're keeping the creative team.
Oh, weird. I thought you were going to say like every time they change teams, they like reboot. And I was like, oh, that's a cool way of like honoring that this is their own story. That's a much more crass system that you just described.
Yeah. Marvel is cynical as fuck about comic books. And they do a lot of we've got a new creative team, so we're going to do a number one. And DC does some of that too, right? DC is not better in a lot of ways. Yeah. But they are less bad about just printing a number one to make money. I love this book. Very simple. I adore Tom Taylor's Nightwing. I think it's one of the best comic books I've ever read. Full stop. How did you all find it?
I really liked it. I haven't actually read a Nightwing book before, but he is my best friend's like absolute favorite character. So I know so much about Nightwing.
Jill, I thought you were going to say he is my best friend now.
He is my best friend now. No, so I was absolutely thrilled to see like a Nightwing volume on our list, and I had just such a blast with it. It's been, I don't want to say it's been a while since I've read an American comic, because I've read some Batman ones, but it's been a while since I've read like an American comic that was part of an ongoing story and not like a one-shot kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I forgot how fun it is.
Yeah, I am fascinated by this book. It's very fun. There's a lot of things about it I liked, but this book, I'm like transforming into Zizek as I read this book because this book is dripping with ideology, and I was fascinated by the things that this book. I've been really trying to untangle, is this the ideology of the creators of the book? Is this the ideology of superhero books in general? Or is this the ideology of like American pop culture? Because there are some ideas in here that I found very challenging, that were presented as if they were very straightforward. And I'm very interested to talk about those. And I also, but at the same time, there's lots of stuff that I like just very uncomplicatedly enjoyed as well. So I'm like quite eager to get into all of that.
I agree with you on probably a lot of those things. I think it's a very complicated book.
Yeah. I think this is the first time, maybe in my life, I've read a superhero comic. Like a genuine American superhero comic. I feel like one time when I was a literal child, I read like a volume where Superman died, like a single issue where Superman died that was at a like somebody's booth in an antique shop. And that's the only other time in my life that I can remember that I think I've read one. So this was a really, really new experience for me, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think the art is really, really gorgeous. I had such a delightful time looking at it. I definitely, maybe even not going on quite as deep of a level as what Robin said about ideology. The thing that stuck out to me a lot with this is that there is a very distinct voice and writing style here that I'm curious to discuss a little bit and see if that is specific to this comic or if it is very common in American comics in general, just like sort of big, broad stuff. What did I wrote this down for myself. Second page, I think. Bullies don't really get to me personally. After Tony Zuko killed my parents, there wasn't much left that could hurt me. I was like, that's just, we're doing a lot in one sentence. And it's not.
Oh, Scout, are you not familiar with Crime Alley? The alley where Batman's parents are killed? It's my favorite Batman fact.
That same thing really jumped out to me, Scout, because that same, like, that thing is obviously very, like, there's a lot of, like, blunt object, work going on here. But then it, like, cuts from that to talking about Blockbuster, this supervillain who runs the city or whatever. And the way they introduce him is by saying something. Did I take a screenshot of this? It's something to the effect of, like, bullies. I've always disliked bullies, and this city is run by them, which is, again, very much like we are connecting the dots. He doesn't like it when people kick puppies, and he doesn't like it when people crush the mayor's head in order to gain power.
There is a literal puppy kicking that happens. Yeah.
I was so worried when this began, and I was like, this begins with a man threatening to shoot a puppy. Like, how unsubtle is this going to be? And I think I don't know if it gets less subtle.
I don't think it gets less subtle. I think even in the 7 volumes, I don't think it gets less subtle. I think it gets a little messy around like volume 4 or 5. But I mean, without, getting too deep into the story, volumes 6 and 7 are about Dick like losing his confidence and regaining it. And it's about the fall and like literally needing to like literally physically not being able to jump.
Oh, not that. Not for him.
Exactly.
He loves to
not
jump.
for my jumpy boy.
Not for Mr.
Not
Jump.
Mr. Jump.
So to get into this immediately, the thing that I have said about manga is that there are manga tropes that don't work for me, right? There are certain things that I'm used to seeing in manga that I'm just like, okay, are we really doing the like overly shy love interest today? Because that just, I can't do that one. The trope that this book leans on, I think, extremely heavily, which, Robin, you're not wrong, is present in a lot of American comics, but not necessarily all of them, is symbols and beating those symbols into your head, right? Batman generally, like, I don't know, if you've seen the Christopher Nolan movies, you know that Batman is about symbols, and that is like not unique to that story. That is true of Batman and all the associated Bat family characters. And I think in most Batman and Batfam books that I have read, the very blunt metaphors that are barely metaphors are extremely common.
Yeah.
And there's like a poppy simpleness to that is part of what I enjoy. Right?
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with the way that comics has existed in America specifically. Just as a medium, I feel like not expecting, that's a bad way of putting it. But like just the way the medium works in America, it does feel like that is a trope for a reason, and the reason is the way that comics in America have had to be published and also all the shit they've gone through.
Yeah.
Because I found myself at first kind of, I suppose, feeling a little bit of friction with it. And then I tried to stop thinking, I tried to, sometimes you have to disconnect from, it's a kind of suspension of disbelief. But I think that my first instinct was kind of like, this feels a little bit like they aren't expecting much critical analysis from the reader themselves. But I think probably what's more likely is just that this is the style of storytelling. Like, this is specifically, there are different ways of telling stories, and the way that American comics want to tell a story is my parents were killed in Crime Alley. I hate bullies because a bully killed my mom and dad, the trapeze artists. And that stuff can be really fun if you let the current take you with it. But it took me a little bit, I think, to be taken by the current. But that's not necessarily a criticism so much as just something that I noticed and thought was interesting about reading it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Scout. It took me a while to get through that as well. And I think actually like having been reading Earthsea also helped, because that's also like, that's not a book that's written for me. And so I was already in the mode of like, it's the thing you do when you do criticism that's like not just your own reaction to the work, but is the work accomplishing what it's setting out to do? And if the work is trying to do something that you don't that's not to your own personal taste, but does it successfully, there is still a way in which that is a successful work. And I think that's kind of the case for this, where it's not doing a thing that I am particularly a fan of. And I do have some problems even with it on its own terms. But on its own terms, I think it's accomplishing a lot of what it sets out to do. Although I do have some criticisms there as well. But I think breaking through that wall to be like, this is not in every instance, this is not a storytelling flaw, it's a storytelling mode. And I think disentangling where the flaws, where the mode and where the flaw diverge, is very helpful.
Well, and the American superhero comic as a storytelling mode has a lot of flaws inherently.
For sure.
You mentioned that line that's like really blunt, telling you a lot of like Dick's history, like his parents were killed by Tony Zuko. That thing where it's telling you a lot of details very quickly is a necessity of American comics.
Because of the way that comics works,
It is because of the way that comics work. It's because of the capitalism around comic books, right? Because we swap out creative teams, because we work them so hard constantly forever, and because we can't let go of IP, this is what happens, right? Which is to say, I'm curious about everyone's experience with the IP, specifically Batman and the Bat family generally.
I can go first. Well, maybe I shouldn't go first, because I feel like I have a lot more than Scout.
I have a hunch that it's you and me mostly. So
I do, So maybe you guys go first.
I've seen Batman movies. I don't know. I've seen like most of the Batman movies, and I loved Batman Beyond. I loved that show when I was a kid. As far as comic books, though, I have no familiarity. It's only the like live action or animated or whatever stuff that I am familiar with. So I know the idea, the gist of Batman, but not like the comics history or anything like that.
You have more than I do, Robin. I have none experience. I saw The Dark Knight once, I want to say, similar to my earlier anecdote about like running across Superman Dies issue in in like a strange antiques hall. I watched The Dark Knight once when I was 12 or 13. I didn't particularly care for it, and I just have not touched like any Batman anything since then, essentially. It has never been something that has particularly stuck out to me or has been something that has grabbed me in any way.
Jillian?
So I grew up, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, more of a, like, my family was more of my dad was more of a Marvel fan. So, I grew up on the Fox X-Men movies, but we watched a couple of older Batman movies here and there. I can never remember which ones, but like my first core Batman memory was watching Dark Knight Rises. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool movie. I really like this. And then I proceeded not to touch Batman stuff for a while, but I got back into it in college when I was recommended to watch Young Justice, and I really enjoyed that. And then recently, my best friend got me into just general Batfam content, because I was like, I've known her forever and she's always been talking about Dick Grayson. And I was like, okay, give me like 10 books to read if I want to know more about Dick Grayson. She's like, well, you would like him, but I think you'd like Jason Todd more. And so that's where...
That really tracks for you.
I know. Look... The first Jason Todd book I read, I was like, damn, I got called out So I have just a whole stack of Nightwing and Red Hood comic books that my friend lent me that I'm slowly working my way through. But it has been a very recent interest, I will say. But I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Jason Todd, the bad boy ex-Robin who died and returned to life.
Who died and came back wrong. So there you go.
Came back wrong.
Came back not afraid to kill people.
Yep.
I did a quick Google image search on Jason Todd to refresh my memory. Some of these, he really do be looking like he's a lead in Voltron.
Yeah.
He does have the white trauma streak in his hair sometimes, you know.
Which I can appreciate a white trauma streak, believe you me.
So I won't go too deep on this, but my like formative Batman experience, and that's, you know, broadening it out a bit, is the Teen Titans Cartoon Network show. I did watch Batman Beyond. I did watch the Batman the Animated Series. I watched all of that. But the thing for me was the Teen Titans show. You know, Justice League was around then too, but Teen Titans is why I got obsessed with Robins. I've always been a fan of the Robins and the extended Bat family. Again, I didn't read a lot of comics about this until the past couple of years. So the two things that I have read are this and Batman Wayne Family Adventures, which is a webtoon that I really recommend you read.
Cute.
Maybe we'll cover it someday. Who knows? And I think that the family aspect of Bruce Wayne and all of his adopted children is the cutest, most fun part of Batman. I think Bruce is interesting on his own, but he's more interesting when he's put up against people like Dick Grayson, people like Stephanie Brown, people like Cassandra Cain, who, Robin, you texted us not knowing who Cass was.
Oh, this is okay. Yes, I love Cass.
Yeah,
whoever she is.
Matt, I'm shaking your hand so hard. Like, that is the whole thing that my friend was like, no, you need to get into it because the Batfam content is like where it's at. And 100%.
Yeah, this is why that game Gotham Knights was so disappointing to me, because the Batman game without Batman, all the reviews for this game were like, it's a Batman game trying to be a Batman game without Batman. And I was like, no, that's the point. It sucks for other reasons.
Yeah. Sure does.
But no, I was prepared to love this book from the beginning. Before this book, two things have happened. One, Dick was shot in the head and did not die. Instead, had amnesia and has been running around as a guy named Rick for
No, is this a coincidence or is there a reason why he thought his name was Rick?
I have not read those books. We do get a glimpse at Rick later on in like volume 6 and 7, but I don't have
all I can think
I've
of
not
is
heard
ick.
favorable things about Rick Grayson.
People hate Rick Grayson.
I will say that.
He has
It's
a
not a
badass
good-
girlfriend that shows up in the book later on.
Great. I already like this book better.
But the other thing that happened was while Dick was running around as Rick Grayson, Alfred was killed. And weirdly, Alfred has remained dead. Like, people don't die
wild.
in
That is
American and
surprising,
superhero
yeah.
comic books for very long. And I think Alfred dying was enough of like a character add for a lot of the Bat family that it has stuck. And this is an example of that. So in like the first few pages, the thing that happens is that Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, Oracle, shows up at Dick's apartment and is like, hey, you've not been around, but while you were Rick, Alfred left you some money in his will. And there's, I think that they just kind of like blow their load on the first few pages. I think the letter from Alfred is maybe the best part of the entire run. There's plenty of moments that are great later on, but that moment is the one for me. And the gist is that Alfred sees Dick and the other Bat fam as his children, and specifically he spent the most time with Dick and leaves him billions of dollars because despite being a butler, Alfred had Wayne Industries stock and had invested it and was a billionaire and simply stayed a butler because he was a part of the family. It's extremely Bat family for that to be the case.
That really is, yeah. Alfred is just such a good character too, in general. Yeah. I just love him as a character. I think he brings such a like grounding presence to some of the nonsense. So when they're like, oh yeah, Alfred's dead, I'm like, no, we can't do this. It's gonna fall apart.
Yeah. What I said earlier about Dick saving the world both as Nightwing and as Dick is that the gist of this book is that he wants to help Bloodhaven stop being a city that's known for its crime and for its corruption. And so therefore invests money into the city to protect its residents. And specifically, he builds a park called Haven for the homeless population of children in Bloodhaven. And all the bad guys don't want this to happen, including Blockbuster, who we've talked about, who kind of runs the town as, like he's basically like puppeting the mayor. And also this guy named Heartless, who is running around with a gun that steals people's hearts and collecting them in little jars in
to put on his little shelves.
On his shelf.
It's just like in his living room.
Yeah. And the book is largely about Dick's conflict with those two people from the superhero perspective, but also his ability to use the money he has gained to meaningfully change the lives of the people within Bloodhaven. You talked about some of the limitations of the form earlier, Robin, and I really think that this is a case of Tom Taylor saying, I do in fact want to write a Nightwing book. That sounds great. I would love to do that. I'd love to make money doing that. And you're not going to get me to do that without injecting a little bit of my politics in there and doing my best job to, within the confines of a superhero comic book, do that. I think it runs face first into the reality that superheroes are super cops and that Bruce Wayne and now Dick Grayson are billionaires.
Yes.
And I think that that's where some of the problems show up in this book.
Yeah. I mean, I fully agree with you. I think, that is what I was alluding to earlier with the ideology of this book. I think is very interesting because it does. It does have a lot of these ideas of like the way to save a city is not by punching bad guys. It's by funding public works and having a social safety net, which I think is correct. But at the same time, it also is a book about punching bad guys in the face. And I think you can't be a person who wants to punch bad guys in the face and a person who wants to build shelters for unhoused children without those two things coming into conflict in some pretty big ways. I will say the thing that really, like, there are 2 pages back to back that like shook me out of a stupor while I was reading this book. And they come pretty close to the end, I believe. So one thing you learn during this book is that the new mayor of Bloodhaven, which by the way is like the biggest instance of nominative determinism I've ever seen in my life. The new mayor turns out to be Dick Grayson's half sister, who appears to be a criminal at first, but it turns out she is working as an informant for the FBI. Pin in that as another issue that I would like to discuss about this book. But when this is happening, this is just after Heartless has set fire to an encampment of unhoused children, and Dick Grayson and I think Robin, one of the Robins, are who
one
saved
of the Robins
the kids.
Is here.
It's Tim Drake, yeah.
And Tim Drake. They saved the kids. And so they're back at Grayson's apartment, and Dick Grayson says, so they're talking about how what happened is the Heartless blew up a bridge that the kids, or a pier that the kids were stranded on, and Grayson put like a distress signal out to say, anyone in the area, please come save these kids. And they were kind of worried that wasn't going to happen because Bloodhaven is full of, criminals and awful people, but it ended up having this flotilla sort of arrive to save these kids. And so Tim Drake says they're okay. I mean, they're back on the streets, but boats came from everywhere to help. It was pretty amazing. To which Dick Grayson says, the people of Bloodhaven have never been the problem. It's the criminals and the ones in charge. And that line, I have a lot of thoughts about that line, because I think this is where it's really hard for me to disentangle. Is this the ideology of the writer or of the industry or of America itself? Because in America, and this is reflected very often in our pop culture, we have a class of person that we call the criminal. And when a person becomes a criminal, you can do whatever you want to them. You can lock them up. You can beat them up if you're a superhero. You can make jokes about the horrible things that they suffer in prison. And it doesn't matter because they're not people anymore. They're criminals. And I think saying that's very explicitly what's being said here. The people of Bloodhaven have never been the problem. It's the criminals, drawing a very clear distinction between people and criminals, which I think is what someone would think if their job is to dress up in a uniform and punch criminals in the face, is to be like, they're not people, so it's okay. But I think it's extremely interesting to me that this is in response to an encampment full of unhoused kids was in danger and I just saved them. Because this is also a country in which the unhoused person is also within the category of the criminal. You know, being unhoused is a crime in many places. And this is so clearly being like, these people who are on the downside of power and privilege and running afoul of the law are okay. But these other ones are not, and they kind of deserve what they get, which I think is also very tied into another instinct of this book to be very black and white. And I think this is like just a very sort of mode of superhero thing where it's like, it's not just, you know, underprivileged people. It's not just unhoused people. It's unhoused children, and it's unhoused children who are orphans, and it's unhoused children who are orphans because the Heart Ripper stole their parents' hearts with his heart ripping gun. Like it goes so far to be like, we know that the cops don't like these kids, but it's fine. They're actually okay. And then there's a thing on the following page where they this is before they learn that the mayor is an informant of the FBI. They see her FBI file, and Tim Drake says, not a lot of good, decent people have a large FBI file. To which I also disagree a lot. I would say actually, in fact, a lot of good, decent people do have a large FBI file because of the ways that we criminalize various people and activities in this country. And I think those two panels, like almost back to back, completely shattered me and like became the way that I saw this entire book. And I don't know what to do with that. I just find it very fascinating that this is a book about saving unhoused children who need your help, and both from physical danger and from the economic hardships they're suffering. And it's a book that includes those lines. I think fascinates me.
Yeah, I think you are running into all of those things that you said you're not sure what it is and how to untangle them. I think you're running into the American worldview. You're running into American superhero comic book worldview, and you're also running into Tom Taylor's worldview.
Okay.
I think you're running into all three of those. Like I said earlier, I think you're running into Tom Taylor trying to write within the constraints. You're also running into a little of like Tom Taylor not thinking very hard on certain things. Specifically like with
very idealized, I would say, is kind of what the feeling is like idealized, and perhaps like heart in the right place, isn't sure how to properly express that without falling into the pitfalls of the way that we as a society talk about people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say that I'm glad that you brought up like the idealized view, Jill, because that was something that I felt a lot reading it, was that the ideology feels extremely naive in a lot of ways. That kind of tripped me up a lot.
I'll say to that point, because I have my notes consist entirely of panels that I've screenshotted. Two other places that really jumped out to me of the that sort of black and white world, or no, sorry, just one more where this happens. When you find out that, what is the mayor's name? What's her?
Zuko.
Melinda?
Yes.
Melinda. Yeah, Melinda Zuko. Yeah. When you find out her parentage, there's this scene where you talk to Dick Grayson talks to her mother, who kind of gives him the whole backstory. And they go to pains to point out that his parents were not together when they met, just to be like, don't worry, everyone. There's no like complicated morality here whatsoever. It's all above board. These people just kindly took in this person. And
no, it was very, very funny of like
it's in its own little speech bubble too, to be like, they weren't together.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing where it's like, it's okay that this relationship is the way it is because, like, here's all the reasons. Scout and I literally just had this conversation yesterday or Sunday, but it's like, sometimes you go so far in trying to, like, defend why it's okay. And, like, everything's above board, that it then makes it weird.
Exactly.
Right. It makes it weirder by drawing a bunch of attention to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think that there is a kind of person for whom this stuff gets in the way and it like makes this stuff unreadable. I think for me, I accept it as like part of the genre.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, exactly. It is absolutely a genre thing as well.
yeah. And these, I know we've talked specifically about superhero comics, but like any serialized literature runs into similar problems, right? Especially ones that have different creative teams. Like the heavy-handed explanations, the little like notes. I mentioned this to y'all earlier in case you had not read American comics, like the little notes like, hey, this happened in issue 21.
Yeah, check out this. If you want to see what they're referring to in this speech bubble, check out this comic. I liked those little moments.
And that's not even like, it's not even a new thing. Like that's been going on for ages. Cause like I remember reading really old Spider-Man comics and it would be like, go check out this issue for what happens next. But because that wasn't a Spider-Man issue, it was not in the collection that I owned. So I was like, well, guess I'll never know.
Did you all read that Gita Jackson piece about Spider-Man Miles Morales?
No.
There's a very good chance I did, but I don't remember it because that was
this
a long
was back
time
on
ago.
Waypoint. And the whole premise of this piece was that you are telling a story about Miles Morales, a black Spider-Man, black Puerto Rican Spider-Man whose dad is a New York police officer. And if you've not played that game, I won't go too deep into the story, but the gist of that story is about Miles having some really police-y feelings about things that are going on in his part of New York.
Yeah.
And I love that game. I think it's awesome. I think the character relationships are really cool. And also, I think Gita nails what's wrong with that story. But I think it's also inherent to Spider-Man. It's inherent to superheroes.
Yeah.
It is a problem with the genre that exists because the genre was created in a place and a system that believes that propaganda, right?
Yeah.
And so it becomes a version of that propaganda.
That's such a mirror of my feelings about this book, where it's just like, I could pick apart something on basically every page of this book, but I also find it very enjoyable to read for plenty of reasons. There is one other, one part here where that heavy-handedness and that like sort of bluntness, I think actually works really well for me. There's a panel early on where Grayson is talking about his history. He's talking about both, his history as like a circus performer and as a superhero or whatever. And he says, I've spent my life working without a safety net because I've always had someone to catch me if I fell. And I read that and I was like, my alarms were going off again. I was like, first of all, that's what a safety net is. It's people helping each other. Also, like what you're describing is privilege in many ways because you were like adopted by this billionaire. Like, what do you propose to do about the people who don't have that safety net or who don't have those people to catch you? So I'm like thinking all of these things. And then like dozens of pages later, like toward the end of the book, where he is talking to Barbara. Is that who Babs is?
Yeah, Barbara
Gordon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're talking about how he wants to help the city. And he says, I want to be a safety net for this city. And I really like that they took this thing at the beginning of the book where I was like, you don't understand what you're saying. And at the end of the book, he understands what he meant by what he said 30 pages ago, where he connects those two ideas. A safety net is just a person who uses their privilege to help you, and he decides to become that person. I think that's very interesting, to be this person who's benefited so much from the goodwill of others to be able to like decide to become that person himself. I think that's an interesting way to tell this story, I think.
Yeah, that stuff is the stuff I love about comic books. Like the thing you just described is like why I read American superheroes comic books. Like, sure, is it like beating you over the head with it? Yeah. But like it still matters to me that like,
but it's working. Yeah.
Yeah. It still matters to me that like the X-Men have gone from a like heavy-handed metaphor about racism to a heavy-handed metaphor about like the way queer people are treated. Right.
Yes.
Like that still matters to me a lot. And it's being extremely earnest and over the top is a way to Matt's heart.
And that's why Matt loves Dick Grayson.
It's why I love Dick Grayson. I've said in comics general that Dick Grayson was formative for young gay Matt. Maybe one of the first men that I realized was attractive.
I mean, no one can blame you.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about some of the moments that stood out to us. I know we've already talked a little bit about the letter from Alfred, but I wanted to read just a couple of lines from it. So Alfred's basically saying like, hey, I was making a crap ton of money because your dad gave me stock a long time ago. And he says, without wanting to apply much pressure, I believe you can be one of the greatest forces for good this world has ever seen. Whatever you choose to do, please know I'm exceedingly proud of you. Proud of your heart, proud of your compassion, proud of your humor, your optimism, and your strength in the face of everything that confronts you. And above all, though we rarely say it out loud, I'm so very proud to call you my son. And Dick is crying, and I am crying.
I'm crying. I love to cry. I love to be sad.
I was just going to say that the visual thing that really got me about that section is Barbara reaching her hand over to hold his hand while he reads the letter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole, it's a kind of it's not quite a 2-page splash, but like it is, the 2 pages are a unit. Mm-hmm. And the first page is just Babs and Dick on like the fire escape, and then just a background of Bloodhaven with little pieces of the letter that are like in paper, like ripped paper word balloons. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful. I think the colorist is doing incredible work on this page. That's Adriano Lucas that we talked about before. A lot of this reminds me, a lot of the colors specifically remind me of Matt Wilson, who's one of my favorite comic books colorists in working right now. He did things like Paper Girls and The Wicked and the Divine, which are 2 of my favorite books. But between Bruno Redondo's like facial expressions and Adriano Lucas's colors, like, and then the letter itself, this entire scene is, I don't know, it's really stuck with me. The first time I read it, I was sitting in like a booth at work crying. And I was like, I need no one to see me right now.
Yeah, it's a really effective note. One of my, not knowing anything about Batman really, and so not necessarily, I've heard the phrase Batfam thrown around a lot. But the thing that I probably enjoyed the most about reading these was those moments where we see a lot of found family stuff going on with the various Batman adjacent people. There's a line in here somewhere where Dick says, like, my father and my other father. And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of that. Those tend to be the moments that stuck out for me too, Scout. There's one, there's a point where, there's several moments that related to this where, there's a moment when Dick, after he gets all this money, he like buys a bunch of pizza for people who are out on the streets to just be like, here, everybody, I'm like giving my money away. And this group of kids steals his wallet. And immediately Barbara sends a text to like the group chat of like all the superheroes.
The family group chat.
And it's just like, just the fact that there was a group chat made me laugh so hard just to imagine
it's
like
really good.
All these like superheroes on the group chat. And then that's the moment where I decided to love Cass because she just texts like a wall of emojis, which I found was really funny. But after that moment is when Tim Drake shows up. You know, he's coming here to like help Grayson with this problem he's having. And so he shows up and he says, Batman wanted me to give you something. It's a wallet chain. It means kids can't steal your money. And as an added bonus, you confront us a soft metal band from the early 2000s. And I just love that they like bully each other in the way that like a close so family or friend group does. Like, I think that's very sweet to include, like, you know, these are books about very serious things, but to be like, they also are just kind of like people and fuck around with each other. And I just really like those bits.
Yeah. This is why we need to read Wayne Family Adventures.
Yes, we really do.
That's just what Wayne Family Adventures is.
There's another good joke in here. It's actually the same pizza scene where he's taking Barbara out and he orders 2 slices and she's like, seriously, you're a billionaire? And he goes, oh, you're so right. 4 slices, please. Like just little things like that I think are very good.
Yeah, so the pizza joint is actually one thing I want to talk about. In that same page that you're talking about where he gets his wallet stolen, on the left side, you see Marvin George's Pizza 24 Hours. Marvin George are the original creators of Nightwing. That's Marv Wolfman and George Perez. And later on in this run, Marv and Dick have a long conversation. It's not in this volume. I believe it's near the end. But comic books do this a lot these days, but especially when they're like paying homage. I believe it was an anniversary issue. I think it's Nightwing 113, if my research from the other day is still in my brain. But it's a cute little nod, I think, to the original creators, but also in the moment where Dick is like trying to do something for his city, it kind of just like adds something for the people that know what's going on to that moment emotionally at the
yeah, I like that.
Are there any other moments?
I mean, story-wise, I don't have anything in particular, but I do have like some art moments that I really enjoyed.
Go for it. Let's talk about the art.
Yeah. The other stuff I have is like in other people's notes, but I would love to get to these conversations too.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite, and I feel like I've probably mentioned this before, but one of my favorite things with comics as a form of literature is using the art style and specifically like way things are drawn or depicted in order to kind of help tell the story. Mm-hmm. And the fact that all of the like the flashbacks of Dick's of Zuko's like whole backstory and Dick's parents dying, the way it is kind of presented more like an older pop art comic rather than the like very sleek way that the rest of the book is presented, and the way it kind of reflects those older comics to reflect the backstory just like tickled my brain so well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the detail of being like, oh, the way we're going to show a flashback is to literally change the art style to something that reflects an older style of comic.
Yeah, and an older storyline, like something that has happened and like been shown in the past. I just really loved.
I do love that. It's like, this is how things used to look. Like, this is what the world looked like back when this happened in like comics universe. I think that's very clever.
Yeah.
Scout, you've noted the after image sequences in our little outline here.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to hear you talk about those because they were some of my favorites, some of my favorite bits as well. There's like a 2-page spread in particular that is like maybe my favorite thing from this book, visually at least.
That is also the one that I had on my list.
Yeah,
I was going to say, Jill, that you also had this in here, right? Yeah, there is a specific like sequential storytelling device that they use here where in some of the fight scenes when Dick is all Nightwinged up and he's punching bad guys and stuff, he does a lot of really like he does a lot of acrobatics, he does a lot of flipping around, and the way they show sort of the path of him moving through these scenes and doing these actions is with these sort of pale blue, again, great nod to the colorist. It's images of him traveling across the pages in different poses in pale blue in a way that almost looks like an after image of him, like we are just seeing it in behind our eyes after he's gone, that just showcases page to pose to pose to pose to pose. In animation parlance, these would be keyframes. These are like, you could string these together and it would map out how a character would move across a frame in animation, and then what we don't see here is like the in-betweens that would pull them all together. But it reminded me so much of keyframes. And it's such a fun and efficient way to draw out a fight scene without having to use, that many pages to do it, that I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think those are great. I think like there's two things. Like, first of all, they're just like very cool. Like, they're very cool to look at. They're very just like technically very interesting and impressive. But I think also the fact that Nightwing's background is an acrobat, and so like the way he moves is very important. It is like a way he expresses himself that like to be used in this book for this character in particular. It's like such a smart thing to be like you noted, Jill, the one like the fight scene. There's like these two in the very corner of this spread. There's like him, punching this guy in the face. The rest of the entire thing is just him flipping and jumping and landing and moving. And it's like, it's telling you like the important thing here is the way that he moves through his city. And I think that's just like a really cool way of expressing like his relationship with the environment he's in.
Yeah, 100%.
If I had to guess, I think that this like this tool of storytelling is one of the reasons that this book is so celebrated. I think Bruno Redondo brought so much to this book. And one of the issues I have with action comics specifically specifically is parsability. I find fights really difficult to follow, and I never have that problem reading this book. It is such a thing that on the cover of the next issue and next trade, it's happening. But also not only that, the first issue of volume 2 is entirely one sequence of these moments.
Ooh, that's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah, specifically, like Bitewing, his dog Haley, has been abducted, and he's saving her. So the entire issue is him like running through the city, getting on a bike, going into a building, fighting everyone, and then like the last page is him, with her in his hand and Babs as Batgirl behind him.
Is Haley the dog as a name an homage to the owner of the circus, which was Hallie, I think, or Haley spelled differently? That was the thing that I was like, oh, is that where he got that from?
There was like a fan vote to name the dog.
Fan vote to name the dog sounds extremely American comics to me.
Yeah, and Haley was the one that went, hey, that's how my boy died. So
Yeah, call in, folks. Do you want this kid to die or get a dog?
do you want this child to die in an explosion? Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we got Jason Todd dead, so.
Yeah.
What?
But yeah, no, my friend did tell me that it was a vote for Miss Bitewing's name.
It's very cute.
Yeah, I'm seeing the tweet from Tom Taylor about it now. Yeah, no, I love the art in this book. Both Bruno and Adriano, both their work is stellar.
Yeah, I mean, you noted the colors earlier. I think this honestly is going to change how I read for this show, because I didn't read too many comics. The ones that I do read tend to be manga, which tend to be black and white, and so I've been reading things just on my like e-reader. And so I did that for this book. I just read it on my thing and I was like, okay, interesting. And then as we were getting ready to record, I was like, oh, I should just screenshot some panels to talk about. So I pulled up the digital non-ebook version to do that from. And literally like the first page, I was like, oh no, I should have read it this way because these colors are incredible.
The color work is really, really exceptional.
It's
too many to
gorgeous.
even call out. Anytime there's a city in the distance, anytime there's like a skyline, there's so much good stuff with light. There's one where it's with Barbara in Dick Grayson's apartment where there's light just shining in through the window and it's just this intense like red kind of pink light coming in. All of that stuff is so well. It does so much work for this comic. It's incredible.
A really clever bit of coloring that I noticed particularly is some very simple but effective color theory stuff at work. Dick Grayson's outfit is black, but there's also a lot of blue in it. And so many of the environments around him are colored in these very warm oranges, reds, yellows, and all of those are complementary on the other side of the color wheel from the blue of his outfit, like the blue, and then there's a lot of black, but the blue specifically, which really helps him stand out. The after images being blue are also part of this. Really great use of tone and hue to be able to make the art really legible.
Yeah. There's a moment where he's climbing into a window. It's just like like a moment that you can almost pass by, but it's he's about to get hit by Melinda's wife, I think. And
yeah, that's her wife to me. I don't know if that's true.
To me, they are girlfriends.
They are. I looked this up because I was like, who are these people? And it was like, they're, her bodyguard, who she eventually married. And I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Love these girls.
Okay.
Let's go.
Sweet.
I knew they were in a relationship. I just wasn't sure the status of that relationship.
Yeah.
I was just being a silly, goofy guy.
Maybe it's
but-
not at this point, but some point in the timeline, this happens.
Yeah. But like he's just like posing in a window and the entire city behind him is pink. And it is such a good image that they call back to later on in the series in a much more like bombastic way that is really cool. I also really, really love, and I'm saying this as a person who's not really a fan of the villain Heartless at all. I love the way that Heartless is rendered in some of these scenes, specifically the reflection on his mask.
Yes, the reflection is so good.
The use of the reflection on his mask is really, really exceptional.
Yeah. I think it does a lot to sell it. And like the LED that represents his heart, or the emptiness that is not his heart, I guess, and how it reflects off of the mask, both in scenes, but also like there's a cover in here that is beautiful, that is just like could not exist without that character design and like really great reflections.
I'll say just the other, and this is like a minor, like, oh, I think this is clever and cute thing, is the, like, when Dick uses one of his fun little gadgets and tools, there's always like a little line of basically how-to drawings.
I was gonna say there's one in there that genuinely looks like it's out of an IKEA.
Yes, like it's so cute. I feel like the first one where he's taking he's using it as a grappling hook and taking the dog off the street, and it legitimately does look like a little IKEA instruction manual. It's so fun, and I just think it's really cool.
It's almost a callback to chibi and manga. That's how I felt about it.
There's even a moment here where they basically do a chibi Barbara Gordon, right?
They do. There is a little chibi Barb in here.
I saw that and I was like, oh my god.
Where she's phoning in. She's like, I'm on this line, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think Robin says something shitty and she's like, I'm right here. Where is it? Yeah, that was very funny.
Oh, speaking of, this is just like a continuity thing that I'm not sure of. I don't know what Tim Drake is going by. Apparently he's going by Robin here, but like, dude has so many names, and I think Damian Wayne is still Robin. Are we just doing two Robins? Because that's a thing you can do in comic books. I don't know. Who knows?
There's a Robin. There's multiple Robins.
All the kids have been Robin.
Yeah.
I found one other. I was flipping through to find this. There's a scene where he's fighting Heartless and he has to dodge a punch. The thing I really like about this is that you can see, even though it's a new panel and it is Dick being in a slightly different place, the cracks in the ground from the fist in the previous panel carry over continuity-wise into the new panel in a way that is really cool.
Yeah, it is really neat.
Stuff like that. I also really, really love, I think it's utilized twice in here, where big blocky onomatopoeia words are used as panels themselves, and then the action is happening within the sound effects, essentially. Delighted me.
It was so cool.
I looked up to see if there was like a separate layout artist for this book, and I couldn't find one. So I'm assuming that that's all Bruno Redondo.
Yeah, I would love to see like thumbnails and stuff for this. I would love to see the sort of process of how it was all put together, especially considering there is some concept art in the back that I enjoyed immensely.
Yeah, I would say in every trade there's like behind the scenes stuff. Usually it's like concept art for characters that are introduced.
Yeah.
But I think in the second trade, if I remember correctly, there's specifically some like early sketches of some stuff that happens in that trade.
That's very fun.
All right. Well, do y'all have any final thoughts?
Nobody speak.
Somebody has to break the silence.
I mean, final thoughts. I really enjoyed it. I went ahead and ordered the second trade, or the second volume of the trade, from my local comic book shop. Was hoping it would get here before we recorded, but alas. And I really enjoyed kind of getting the perspective of both you, Robin and Scout, as folks who like have not touched Batman content, versus me and Matt as people who like are very entrenched in the Batman content. I think that
was in the Batman minds.
Yeah, we're in the Batman minds.
It's so funny being the Batman guy here, because like I avoid reading Batman books. Like I read a lot of other stuff. I'm like not like in a like Batman's too cool, but like I just have other interests, and sometimes I'm just like, there's so much Batman that like you don't know where to start.
Well, and that's the thing, Matt, that's why I went to my Batman friend and was like, tell me what I need to be reading.
Yeah,
and I went to my Catwoman friend and I was like, tell me what I need to be reading. And they both said, here, read these.
Yeah.
Don't touch this.
It's just funny because like I definitely like I picked up Nightwing specifically because it was talked up so much by Bradley in the Comics General channel and TWG. And, you know, I also read Wayne Family Adventures because I asked Alex Jaffe, like, hey, I really adore the Batfam. And he replied on Blue Sky, like, you need to be reading Wayne Family Adventures. And those are the big things, I guess, other than like Batwoman, which is even more of a side character than Nightwing that I've read recently. I've read some Batman here or there. But I think, like I said, a lot of my feelings about Batman were born in like the cartoons that were popular in the 90s and 2000s. And I don't know. I just think this book is a nice way to call back to some of that for me specifically.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my final thought about the book.
Yeah, I don't know. This just made me think of the joy of like reading broadly, reading outside of your comfort zone, and like reading things critically. This is not like something that in a million years I ever would have read on my own. And I think getting to see all like the visual storytelling here, I think is like really exceptional. And I think the other like more critical stuff we talked about with the sort of ideology of the book is not what I would call exceptional, but certainly interesting to think about. Yeah, I don't know. It just really, it reminds me of how much fun it is sometimes to take something that's like not for you and just like pull it apart and see how it's working there. And I had a really good time doing that with us.
Yeah. My final thoughts here are similar, is that this is totally a new thing for me. I was really happy to sort of dive headfirst in and try and piece my way through what was going on and experience an art form and a big story and a big like whole industry and stuff in American comics that I really have not touched at all. And I had a lot of fun with it, and am interested to maybe look at some more. Definitely look at some more for the show, but maybe even look at some stuff on my own time, you know?
Yeah. I'm excited to, like, we've got a ton of things that we want to cover on the show. We've got like this huge ideas list of books we can read, and it's super varied. We got French stuff on there. We got a lot of manga on there. You know, we've got some superhero comics on there, but I'm also excited to get you all reading American indie comics. Like stuff that,
I really want to get into that too.
Stuff that's specifically like in, you know, the direct comics market that is a part of that world, but is often made by people who have worked for hire for one of the big two. And like the ways that the storytelling happens there, that's almost in response to the big two. I think that has its own limitations, but it also has its own like creative constraints that, you know, create some really awesome opportunities in the world.
Oh, I am so into that. I used to read so many, like, more, again, this was when I was in college and took the class on comics, and therefore, like, that was part of the curriculum, was go out and read these more indie comics. But there's so much out there.
Yeah.
There's so much.
It's crazy.
And hey, we're going to try and cover some of it on the show.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll head into the back matter.
If you're listening, thank you so much. I believe this is going to be our first episode. So thanks for listening to this first episode of In Sequence. We're going to be doing this every other week, but today you should have multiple episodes. It is yet to be determined how many episodes you're going to have, but you're going to have multiple episodes to listen to. If you want to read Nightwing Leaping into the Light, you can get it on Hoopla if your library supports that service. You can get it on DC Universe Infinite if you want to have a subscription to DC for some reason, or you can support your local library or comic shop. Both of those really need your support, so I'd probably go there first.
Yeah.
In Sequence is a member of The Worst Garbage. You can find The Worst Garbage at theworstgarbage.online. Come join our Discord. By the time that we are out in the world, I'm sure there will be a channel with a lot of chaos in it, and you can come join us and join it and talk to us. Panelists, do you have anything that you want to plug before we go?
Read my fanfic. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe do, though.
Maybe do, though. If you like Batfam, maybe do, though. You can find me on Blue Sky at plot-twists, and you can find my voice again on the podcast that I do with Scout called Paws and Claws.
Yeah, you can follow me on Blue Sky at Robin Bombas. You can hear me talk about video games with my friend Willa on the Girl Mode podcast here on The Worst Garbage. And you can also watch me play video games with my other friend Annie at twitch.tv/parallelplayers.
You can find me on my podcast process with Jill as they laid out. You can also find the art that I do on my portfolio, scoutwilkinson.myportfolio.com, if you want to see some of that. And follow me on Blue Sky and Tumblr if you want, if you're a little crazy.
If you want to get wild with it.
Also, shouts out to Scout for the art on the show. It is still in progress at the point that we're recording this, but it is super good.
Yes.
And I'm super excited about it.
It's already great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Having a lot of fun with it.
You can find me at matthorton.live. That's got everything that you could probably find about me on the internet. Lex and I are working on a video about a puzzle game about unionizing right now.
Fun.
And
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited for that video to come out. It should be out by the time that this podcast is out for sure. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Support your local library and your comic shop. Bye.
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 TWG, the worst garbage, online.